Councillors, I'll declare the meeting open and I'll call for apologies and leave of absence. We have one apology, Councillor Mark Sutherland, who is away on council business, and we have Councillor Matt Sharpen, who is online. I'll move straight from there to, could I have a motion to accept that apology? Thank you, Councillor Ron Brook. Seconded, Councillor Budd. All those in favour say aye. Aye, carried. We'll move to item 2, community consultation. Now, we have no registered community consultation, so we'll move straight to item 3, disclosure of interest. Are there any disclosures of interest, councillors? Being no disclosure of interest, we'll move straight into open council reports, and I'll go to item 4, governance and strategy and finance, and I'll go to 4.1, and I'll ask for a mover in a second. I move Councillor Budd, seconded Councillor Impey. Councillor Budd, you wish to speak to that?
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Opportunity presents again for Tamworth Regional Council to showcase our immense sporting facilities and amenity in our city and our region. Been fortunate to be involved in a couple of conversations in relation to this, and it's really an exciting opportunity for Tamworth to bring yet again another high-end sporting fixture to town, namely the Regional Country Championships, which will bring around 1,300 participants in terms of players and supporters, etc. So, in totality, the investment brings us about $2.7 million back over the 3-year deal of bringing that event to us. It certainly hasn't got the returns of the Koori Knockout, but it's not to the scope and magnitude of that as well. It's a great opportunity for our kids to see high-end rugby, to see country kids, country adults and country women all participating here in our town and sharing of the great amenities we have. Importantly, in the background, we know West Entertainment Group are actively pursuing a women's international rugby team who will participate in the Australian Women's World Cup, which I think is 2028 from the top of my head, or 27. If we can get if they are successful in getting an international women's team here, they'll be here for 3 to 4 weeks. That provides immense opportunities over and above this particular proposition in its own right. So I think it's fantastic, and I think that it's another opportunity for us to show our wares and support our community and pump that economy back up with tourism and sporting income. I commend the motion.
Thank you, Councillor Budd. Any councillor wish to speak against that recommendation? Any further comments on that recommendation? Councillor Brook.
Thanks, Mr Mayor. Just a question. In the financial implications in the report, it states that our contribution would be a mix of cash and in-kind contributions. Do we have any indication of what those in-kind contributions would entail and what the mix would be?
Councillor Brook, no, sorry, we don't have any indication of what that might look like, but we were looking to hopefully think it might be 5 to 7, but we're not too sure. We can't make a comment on that with a definitive number. I think the important part is that the West Entertainment Group are looking to sponsor it in a similar way to us, but we can also offer in-kind support because we'll own the fields that they'll be playing on, or some of the fields they'll be playing on. So we'll be able to do a fair bit to probably, I guess, cover some of those costs that we're talking about. The other thing that I'd like to just say, Councillor Brook, is that whilst we can't do it this year, but I have spoken to a couple of people, and I think there'll be some opportunities for us to actually apply for some grant funding for next year. So that'll be, if we do get that, and that'll be very helpful to our contribution. But there's no guarantees around that, but I certainly do believe there will be some really strong opportunities for that. Further comments, councillors? Councillor Rodder.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Just a question following on from Councillor Brook. Just in relation to West Entertainment Group indicating that they were considering also contribution supporting the event. Does that leave council and therefore the ratepayers holding the can if they actually decide at their board meeting not to proceed?
No, Councillor Rodder, if the West Entertainment Group decide not to support this, it won't happen. Councillor Impey.
Thanks, Mr Mayor. I was also concerned with that, but I think it's important not to look at these things in isolation, and I hope the West Entertainment Group board also think of this, but it's an opportunity to showcase our city's resources at that sporting level, And rugby is in the midst of what could be a bit of a golden period with, of course, the World Cup. And it would not surprise me if there is an application for rugby to be one of the Olympic sports at the Brisbane Olympics, given how keen Queenslanders are on rugby. So it gives us an opportunity, I think, not only to look at this event in isolation over the next 3 years, but possibly even Super Rugby. It's not out of the ordinary, perhaps, for a Super Rugby match to be taken into a region that can cater for a Super Rugby match, and our region can. And also the opportunity for more young people to pick up sport. We talk about youth crime as being a challenge in our community. I'm convinced that sport is one of those activities that if more young people take sport up, that would also then help level out in some ways the amount of youth crime that might occur or might not occur. So I think sport should be seen as one of the tools that we have to try and ensure that young people are kept busy from a younger age, and these sorts of events can help capture their imagination.
Thank you. Further comments, councillors? I'll just make a little comment, and that is that, you know, with the World Cup coming, with the Olympics some years away, and if we can put ourselves, I guess, out front, we may be able to see some great opportunities for our city. We look at hockey, and I think there's going to be some fantastic opportunities there. The hockey community's been very well established for quite some years, fantastic facilities, and they're able to support a lot of things. With the rugby union fraternity, which is growing now and starting to grow and starting to actually pick up in a bit of momentum, they actually haven't got the facilities and the opportunity to fund the events the way that we would like to see them do that, that will benefit the city into the future. But I think doing what we're talking about here will actually grow those opportunities and really make Tamworth one of those centres that is one of those standout facilities for rugby union, as it is for hockey and many of the other sports. Councillor Budd, do you wish to close the debate?
Thank you, Mr Mayor. If I may, just a piece of information I omitted to share. Rugby New South Wales have in fact established a rugby hub here in Tamworth, one of 5 regional hubs. And the endeavour behind that, they've got a permanent staff member here, is to bring along junior rugby and support the senior rugby throughout this northwest region of New South Wales. So there is a clear commitment for Rugby New South Wales in our city, and I think it's an added bonus on top of this. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Budd. Now, you moved that. I'm sorry, who was the seconder of that motion? Councillor Impey. Thank you. Councillors, the debate is now closed on that. I'll put the recommendation. All those in favour say aye and raise your hand. Aye. Carried unanimously. Councillors will now move straight into item 4.2. Could I have a mover and a seconder, please? Move Councillor Ron Brook, seconder Councillor North. Councillor Brook, do you wish to speak to that?
I reserve the right, Mr Mayor.
Anyone wish to speak against the recommendation in that report? Any further comments on that recommendation? No further comments. I'll put the recommendation. All those in favour say aye. Aye. Carried unanimously. Councillors, that'll take us now through to item 4.3, and I'd like to have a mover and a seconder for 4.3, please. Councillor Budd, second to Councillor North. Councillor Budd, do you wish to speak to that?
No, thank you, Mr Mayor.
Anyone wish to speak against that recommendation in item 4.3? Any further comments on that item in 4.3? Councillor Rodder.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Just a question in relation to dot point 6 on page 8. It mentions undertake a review of the general fund land and building assets to identify opportunities to activate and maximise utilisation of these assets with a view to taking advantage of commercial opportunities that will improve council's discretionary investment holdings. Does that mean that it will include asset sales, or would that be rentals? What would that include? And just prior to that, I was just clarifying in terms of the code of meeting practice. If there's no one speaking against a motion, then we don't need the closing of the debate discussion. Is that correct?
Sorry, if we...
So if a motion is put before council and there's no one speaks against it, then we don't generally would have the mover speaking at the end. Is that accurate?
We don't have to, no. And Councillor Rodder, just to answer your question, we'll be looking, this is a very important report, and I hope everyone had a very good digestion of it. There's a lot in there. I know our finance people have worked on this at great length. In terms of the item that you mentioned, we will have to engage someone to help us actually identify what's out there that is reasonable to be able to sell if that's the case, or not sell if that's the case. If we did determine to sell some assets that we have that are, and I would assume that if we engage a company to actually go through all of the assets, we've got hundreds and hundreds of blocks of ground that are just sitting there doing nothing. Those particular assets are sitting there and costing this council money with maintenance and so forth. They need to be identified so that we as councillors can then make a decision on what's the best way forward with all of those parcels of property that we own and we are in control of on behalf of the community. And some of those may need to be considered for sale. So that'll be a decision of all of the councillors when the time comes. But we need to know what we've got. There wouldn't be a person sitting in this room that actually knows and has a very good understanding of everything that this council owns. There is hundreds and hundreds of pieces of asset, mostly land, blocks of ground, that we own, and we're just maintaining at a cost to this community. So we need to make some decisions when the time comes, and when we do get a report on what's available there for consideration for either sale or keeping, we need to be able to consider what's needed by this community in the long term to keep and what's not. So I think there's a lot of work, a lot of water to go under the bridge there, a lot of work to be done, but everyone that sits around this table will have input into those decision-making processes as to where we go from there. All this report is saying that is something that's on the table. You happy with that?
Mr. Mayor, just a supplementary question. Do you think, given the issues identified in this report, that we probably should be including potentially other potential savings, such as a review of a staff review to identify maybe obsolete or positions that aren't required, and also positions that currently aren't filled, and potentially consider a moratorium on filling those positions that might actually help the budget?
Councillor Ryder, this particular report refers to, in that dot point, actually land and building assets. It doesn't talk about staff. A staff review is something that would be held quite independently of what this report is referring to. Further comments, councillors? Councillor Impey?
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. Just a couple of points I wanted to make. One is it's very pleasing to see 69.15% of the special rate variation being spent on roads. So that's actually over and above the 66% that was previously mentioned and advertised when that special rate variation was determined. And the other point I wanted to make was, and look, we do have a long shopping list, but such items listed, and it does say projects include but are not limited to, but I hope in this case one particular item doesn't fall off the list. We've got the organics recycling facility, we need that. We've got the renewal of Ray Walsh House, we need to find somewhere to live, of course, and we've also got the Global Gateway Park and future development. But I'd like to ensure that the Performing Arts Centre, the Regional Performing Arts Centre, is certainly not forgotten and not left off any list in the future, because it is an important part of our infrastructure going forward for this city. Look, I'm very much, I think we all would be, and I think our community would expect us to be, a subscriber to the fact that if there are some assets that are just sitting around costing us money that have no real meaning for anyone in our community, I think they would expect us to utilise those and redirect the funds from those facilities, if they were indeed sold, onto other such items on that shopping list, which would enrich in our community over time.
Thank you. Councillor Brooke?
Thanks, Mr. Mayor, and I'll back up Councillor Impey's statement there about considering the Performing Arts Centre in the future as well. Getting back to dot point 6, I have a question in relation to that. Do we know how long it's been since we've done a audit or a review of what property and land assets that we own? I imagine we would have had to do something of the sort around the time of amalgamation, just to identify, you know, what assets we're taking in from amalgamated councils. But has there been something done since then?
I could ask Karen if she can answer that, but I think the last time that was done was at amalgamation.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, look, we do review through revaluation time, every time we do revals, that we look at all our land parcels, and sometimes we find land we didn't know we were listed as land. So we do that very regularly, so every 5 years for land, and building assets is the same. So depending on, we do, the external auditors review that data, and so yeah, it's not like it hasn't been done since amalgamation. We do it regularly, but as the Mayor said, we do have lots of parcels of land, and sometimes we miss one. It's not recorded correctly at the time. It might be a small parcel of land that's transferred over. So to do a full investigation on what land we own and what we don't own, and to whether it has strategic value or not is the key as well.
Councillor Brooke, what Karen says is right, but we haven't actually sat down as an organisation since amalgamation and looked at everything that we own and what we do need for the future to make it work. Sorry.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I think to elaborate on the points been raised by Councillor Brooke and Councillor Roda, it's more about the value of those assets. So the value of the asset can be extracted through either in use, like using it for holding events or leasing it out to private sector, or if the value is not utilized optimized in that fashion, then we're better off actually divesting it or selling it. We have to remember that we made a commitment when we took the approval for the special rate variation, that we will look into the asset pile that we have and optimize the benefits coming from those assets, either by using them, which is in terms of rent, utilization, lease, and that stuff, or by selling them if the value will be obtained that way. And many of the stuff in that report and the issues that we're facing, either funding new capital projects or extinguishing old loans that has been actually obtained to fund capital projects, is better served by selling some of those assets that are barely in use, and the value will be extracted through selling them. So the exercise is more about, number one, you're right, discovery of, yes, these are the assets that we have, so verifying all the audits that we do on yearly basis. But number two, and more importantly, is to actually identify what's the best use and what's the value given what's the market is currently having, and what's the history of utilizing those assets for the last 5 years for us. Thank you.
So Councillor Brooke, again, just answering your question, we actually haven't looked at everything we've got and made any determinations on what we need for the long-term future and the long-term benefit of the community, or what we maybe don't need. So we haven't done that. We do all the stuff that the staff have spoken about, we actually haven't done that bit. Any further questions or comments, councillors? I'll put the recommendation. All those in favour say aye. Carried unanimously. Councillors, that brings us to the end of our council meeting, and I'll ask for someone to move. We close the meeting. Councillor North, seconded Councillor Mears. All those in favour say aye. Aye. Carried. Meeting closed.